Welcome. My name is Don, and this is the second in our 32 Soft webinar series on production orders. In the first, which was last month, we covered the production line setup and the basics of production orders. Today, we'd like to cover some of the operations of production orders. Just a quick look at the agenda. We'll do a quick review. We'll talk about some location concepts, and then we'll cover allocations, picking policies, pick lists, directed, non-directed, bulk, and releasing production orders. As always, there's lots of new terms to learn and understand. Take a minute to look at the list. That should help you in your understanding. Since this is the second in a series of 3 webinars about production orders, I'd like to take just a minute to review what we talked about last month and jump into the second discussion about operations. In part 1 in our webinar series, we covered a little bit about the item master. We talked about product structures, routings, which are pretty much the same. There are some significant changes in 1.4.6, which we'll cover. Then we covered production lines, production line calendars, allocations. We talked about the production order control, 16.3.24, and spent a fair amount of time on 16.3.1 talking about order dates and quantities. In part 1, we covered probably the most important aspect of the new settings in the production orders, and these settings we can find in 1.4.6, 1.4.16, the item site inventory, and the picking item frame. The first is this allocation policy. Allocation policies are either detailed or general, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There is the pick policy. Pick policy comes with options of pick an issue, do not pick, or pick a transfer. There is the transfertation or the transfer allocation policy, where options are either drop allocations or keep allocations. That is going to play important. The issue policy is moved from 1.4.17 and has the options for either backflush, direct, or no issue. We've got manufacturing pick order, which can be either default defined in inventory control or by location, by lot number, by date or expiration date. The ascending and descending goes with that manufacturing pick order. And then we also have the quantities of the pick, which is similar to our order quantities that we've seen for the last couple of years. The introduction of production orders in QAD's 2016 version brought significant changes to product lines. The order system, the old pre-2016, was used primarily for organizing production activities and allocating resources and tracking production. However, with the introduction of the production orders in 2016, we find more flexibility and efficiency. Production lines now offer enhanced functionality and support of mixed mode manufacturing. There's improved flexibility and streamlined processes for easier management of variations in types and batch sizes. We've got new bulk order pick lists, which can be created for multiple production orders against a single production line. We've got new reserved locations, and production lines are now tightly integrated with the other manufacturing modules such as BOMs, routings, and material planning. Production lines now play a huge part in the operation of production orders. Much thought should be spent in defining and creating and processing production lines. Last month, we looked at the fundamentals of the production order, remembering that the production order is for an item at a site. Lots of consideration for order types and manufacturing types. The production line is accomplished at a product line. Order status determines where in the production order process a particular order is at a specific sequence. of manufacturing, the routing and BOM controls define how we make the product, and there are new dates, release date, due date, order date, need date, all drive scheduling operations, and production orders have new quantities, quantity to start, expected quantity, estimated yield, actual quantity completed. So lots of combinations can be done in the production order. We didn't get a chance to cover locations as they relate to production orders last month, but there are several aspects of the new locations you should want to look at. We will want to understand the difference between controlled locations versus shop floor locations. We want to understand production line and work center backflush locations and how inventory is selected for that backflush, including lot controlled items. We need to understand the concept and application of reserved locations for both product lines and work centers. And most importantly, how locations are used when creating inventory allocations for production orders. Each time you perform an inventory transaction, such as an issue, receipt, or transfer, you must specify both a site and a location. You should use 1.4.1, 1.4.6, or 16 to define default sites for locations for individual items if required. And you can create all sorts of locations, physical locations, automatic locations, single item locations, in-transit locations. Just be sure you have a correct and adequate locations defined for your organization's requirements. Blank location codes are allowed, but not recommended. And the inventory status is the usual status of inventory held at this location. Should be cautious. Work order receipt status and PO receipt status can be assigned to a default inventory status code for production orders and purchase orders. Controlled locations are normally a physically controlled site and are secure, controlled storage of inventory. Access to controlled locations are normally restricted to authorized people only. I remember when I used to work at Beckman Instruments, I upset a whole bunch of supervisors when I locked them out of the stockroom, but you need to have restricted access. A requisition or a pick-lick document is required to remove inventory from a controlled location, and there needs to be a documented process for put away, picking, issuing, movement, cycle counting, physical. Everything you do needs a process. Set up all locations at inventory locations in 1.1.18.1. Notice the change in the menu selections. It's one of the things that will hit you as you move to production orders. The 1.1.18.1 location maintenance is used to define and specify areas within a particular site where inventory is stored. Can be shelves, bins, lots. Each location's parameter is identified as to where and how inventory can be stored. And you can use 1.4.6 or 16 to define site-specific locations for an item. The naming convention of location and identifiers, you should consider picking orders and the location codes as to how they're going to be used for work orders, sales orders. It's recommended you use number locations such as 1,000, 11,000, 8,000. If you use significant codes and allocate in ascending order, the system checks locations alphabetically. For example, inspect would become before storage. So be cautious how you name them. The locations can be set up for having moderate or high level of control. Inventory status code is used to determine that, whether the quantity at the location is available for allocations, whether it's nettable for MRP, or whether it can be overissued. For high control, you want to set that inventory status code to no for overissues, so you can't have the possibility of a negative on-hand balance. Reserved locations are new to the production order module. They are for better control over inventory allocations. It provides more flexibility for setup, and reserved locations enhance the production order management process. They're used to improve material allocation and tracking, segregation of material, enhancement of production readiness, and improved inventory accuracy. 1.1.18.13, work order reserve location maintenance. We use this to define a shop location for inventory quantities that will be allocated and consumed at a particular work center. Two ways to denote that. If you set up the work center with an item number blank, then it applies to everything. If you put in an item number and a location, then it's specific to that inventory status location. The 1.1.18.16 product line reserve location is a control station such as staging that is closer to the shop floor, segregated from the main warehouse that is designated for materials to be transferred to a production line. Production line reserved locations support just-in-time, improve operational efficiency, facilitate multiple line operations, and improve inventory reallocation and returns. Backflush locations for production lines and work centers are necessary to support the backflush functions from shop floor. The shop floor backflush locations of inventory and manufacturing are for production personnel. Production line, work center, and backflush locations are basically equivalent to the supermarket concept in Kanban, if you're familiar with that process. Backflush locations receive inventory transferred from controlled stockroom locations and supplies inventory for component issue and backflush location. Locations must be defined in advance using 1.1.18.1 and then defined in 16.1 production line maintenance or 14.5 work order maintenance. To create production line backflush location in 16.1.1, enter the inventory location used to issue the materials when performing backflush location transactions for a production line. These are used to automatically deduct the required material quantities from inventory when production is reported as completed on a specific production line, thus eliminating the need for manual inventory transactions and ensuring that materials are consumed accurately and accounted for in real time. The 14.5 work center maintenance defines a unique location that has an inventory for that work center and site. Again, the purpose similar to the production line backflush, but it's tied directly to the work center, ensuring that materials are accurately consumed at a particular work center and are automatically deducted from inventory. The location detail collections are very much enhanced in the new production order module. This is used for managing material allocations and movement within the production process. It enables viewers to view reserved locations, back locations, and you can manage detail allocations, policies, and enable business to operate, including bulk pick lists and multi-order. You can see from the plethora of data elements in this one collection, from inventory status code to site maintenance to location maintenance to inventory status code maintenance, everything you need to manage locations for a product line or work center. Here is a comparison sheet of production line backflush locations versus work center backflush locations to measure yourself against when setting up for production orders. The location availability visibility tab in the Manage Materials for Production Line collection in the production order module provides primary tools for managing and optimizing inventory and material flow. Functions include inventory status control, location-based allocations, enhanced visibilities, and streamlining of the picking processes. Now let's look a little bit closer at some parameters, such as the inventory picking parameters. We'll talk about non-directed and directed picking. We'll look at production order pick list, bulk item pick list, allocation policies, pick policies, issue policies, transfer allocation policies, and a little bit about production backflush and shop floor locations. So what is an allocation? During the allocation process, a component is assigned or earmarked to a specific production order using features. It reserves the component at the warehouse location, and you can transfer the allocation to a production line. It defines production or picking activities. You can set up allocation policies, either general or detail or none. The pick policy operations can be transferred, issued, or no pick. You have options of transfer allocation policy, of either keep or drop. Issue policy can be backflush, direct, or issue, and you can define how that all happens in the 16.3.24, which we covered last week. Set up and manage the production line allocations in 16.1.6. Automatically assign quantities. You can manually enter and adjust assigned quantities on component lines, and you can set up auto assign production order lines. In general setup, you can create direct and non-direct pick lists, and the production order functionality uses the phantom use-up logic. You can automatically create routable items or production orders for routable items. And when I was a planner, I would have died for this. It supports the inclusion of planned orders in the allocation process when the status of the planned production order is set to P. The allocation also takes into consideration production line calendars, site calendars, domain calendars, everything you need for detail allocations. Here's a comprehensive flow diagram of how the detail allocation process occurs in QAD. You may want to study this for consideration as you approach production order implementation. The allocation policy and pick policy work together to manage inventory allocations and picking process. When a production order is released, the system uses the allocation policy to determine how the inventory is going to be allocated. The pick policy then determines how that allocated inventory will be handled. For high volume items requiring precise tracking, you might use detail allocations and transfer picking policy. For low or high volume items, you might use a general allocation with a issue pick policy. By carefully selecting the appropriate combination allocation and picking policies, organizations can optimize inventory management processes to meet their specific needs. The 16.5.1 production order allocate function allows users to effectively manage component availability, streamline the picking process, and ensure materials are properly allocated. By setting the option create pick list to know, one can run a 16.5.1 in simulation mode, thus allowing testing and experimentation before actually committing to a pick list. The details of 16.5.1 include the ability to calculate and create pick lists. It supports detail and general allocations, enables users to set a flag to create pick lists automatically, provides the ability to allocate components at a location in a warehouse and transfer that allocation to a production line as needed. Another function I would have loved as a planner. Facilitates the creation of bulk order pick lists, where you can create a single pick list for multiple production orders against a production line. You can use 16.5.2 production order manual allocation to manually update detail allocations for a production order. You can only allocate production orders that have status of F, E, A, or R. The order status will be updated to exploded if you use the 16.5.2. Let's look at a couple of scenarios that you might encounter when allocating components to a production order. Before, when, you might do it when you're releasing, and you might want to maintain detail allocations. You might want to allocate inventory when you're creating a pick list. Then you would use the 16.5.1 production order allocate. With calculate pick list to yes, this allocates inventory and creates a production order pick list. Or you might want to use 16.5.3 bulk item pick list calculation. This will allocate inventory and create a bulk item pick list. Or you may want to allocate inventory before creating the pick list. In this case, you might use the 16.5.1 production order allocate with the calculation pick list equal no. You could then change the status to A and manipulate the allocations in 16.3.1 or 16.4.3 or 16.4.25. The transfer allocation policy provides support for backflush of inventory items, even lot control items. Again, as a planner, I would have loved to have this function. The application is when pick policy equals transfer. You might want to drop the allocations. Might not necessarily be those things that are defined through the allocation process. Or you could set the allocation transfer policy to keep. In that case, the lot controlled items that are allocated and picked for the production order are issued and backflushed to that exact same order. With keep, there is a high degree of accuracy and integrity for allocations, pick lists, and inventory control. This is a flow that illustrates whether the detail allocations for an item are dropped or retained after the transfer is completed. Again, you may need to study the flow diagram to better understand this transfer allocation policy. Once you've properly allocated and printed the production order or a bulk pick list, you will want to send that document to the controlled stockroom for picking. The way a component is allocated, picked, and issued again depends on the manufacturing process of the parent. Picking function in QAD's production order module enhance production order process by providing efficient and flexible material capabilities. It affords improved material management. You've got bulk order pick lists. You've got flexible picking options. You can change picking policies. You've got transfer allocation policy, issue policies, and enhance the control. Streamlines process, improves visibility, and gives you more efficient material management. In a general scenario, some of the materials for a production order list might be picked and issued to an order, while others may be picked and transferred to shop floor. Very flexible. You can create the pick list, pick the quantities, transfer to the shop floor, transfer to shop floor locations, and then backflush from those shop floor locations. The pick policy determines how the quantities for an item get to the shop floor and determines whether the item appears on the production pick list or a bulk item pick list. The pick list can either be issued, which is very similar to the old 1610. This is pick 16.511. Or you can have pick policy of no pick if you've got low volume or just shop floor or Kanban, min-max. You can use that, or you can transfer the pick policy. Here the item appears on the bulk item pick list or the production pick list, and the item is transported to the shop floor locations and processed using 16.5.9 production order pick list. One of the most important aspects of manufacturing is ensuring that all correct and required materials are given to the shop floor for processing. The 16.5.5 production order pick list print functionality allows users to generate a pick list of materials required for a specific production order. The 1655 supports the picking process by providing a document for warehouse staff to collect required materials and enables users to print pick lists at any status on the production floor and facilitates the transfer of picked materials to the shop floor. Again, depending on your internal structure, you will probably want to print the pick list or bulk print pick list. Production order pick list functionality is extensive, and you will need to study this flow diagram and test the scenarios for specific effects in your organization. Here are the printed pages of the 1655 production order pick list. Note we now have shortage tags that you can print. One of the things that used to drive me crazy as a planner was when an engineer would come and want a special version of production. Always messed up the work order flow and processing. Now with production orders, you can get as complex as you want. Here we have an engineer who wants a specific build, allocate a particular lot. The order is set up and then released by the scheduler. And then throughout the life of the production order, which may be several days or weeks, the planner has complete visibility and control over that specific order. The 1657 production order pick list is used to pick inventory from a stocking location and create a record of that physical item picked. When picked, the system changes the status from allocated to released. 16511 production order pick list issue functions to issue components that require or appear on a production order pick list. This function is typically used to issue inventory quantities that have picked from a controlled stock location. The inventory quantities for shop floor control typically use 16.5.12 production order component issue. The 16514 production pick list shortage update is another great function, is used to update production shortages based on a general or allocated process. The key aspects are you identify and update item shortages required for production orders. The update can be performed using a general or allocated process, thus providing flexibility for handling different production scenarios. The function is part of the broader production order pick list management process, which includes 1655 and 16512. The 16515 pick list shortage browse can be used for reviewing shortages. Non-direct and directing picking process in a production order module relates to how materials are selected and issued for production. Firstly, non-directed picking. The stockroom picks the inventory using the pick list that shows the item and the quantity. A person records the item and quantities that he actually picks. In other words, this is what to pick. But the directed picking uses the pick information on a pick list and specifies items, quantities, and locations. Persons pick the inventory using the pick list, and the person confirms the update of the item that's picked from the location specified on the pick list. This is what and where to pick. Allocation policy for direct and non-direct picking should be considered for both production orders and bulk item pick lists. The allocation policy specifies the automated processes created for inventory allocations. With detail allocation for the item determine the demand for the allocated stock. You can specify detail when you want to conduct a specific quantity to pick for the allocation process or the automated process. With general allocation, the system uses a general allocation for items on the production order. For example, specify general when inventory items are manually picked, and you have either to create or have the system create the detail allocations for the picked inventory. Here is a flow diagram of the production order pick list. You can study the flow diagram in detail and again consider for the production order implementation. You can specify how the system issues inventory quantities to production, and by setting the issue policy in 1.4.16. There are basically three options. You can use a no issue. This is for expense, cleaning supplies, those kinds of things which you don't want to actually issue. You can backflush, which allows you to use the 16.3.1 receipt backflush or the 16.13.13 operation activity transaction, or you can have a direct issue. This usually uses the 16.5.12 or 16.5.11 work order pick issue. Items can appear either on a production order pick list or a bulk item pick list. You can use 16.5.23 pick list history delete, kind of clean up your records. You can get lots of pick lists out there. The cleaner you get, that simplifies investigation and control. You can set up production orders or bulk item transfers by a combination of settings for pick policy, issue policy, and transfer allocation policy. This requires some thought and imagination to test all inventory and manufacturing processes for your organization. Use 16.5.3 bulk item pick list calculation and 16.5.6 bulk item pick list print to print a bulk item pick list for one or more production orders to pick, prepare, and transfer materials to the shop floor from a stockroom controlled location. Bulk item pick lists are independent from production order pick lists or the production order release and dispatching of orders. To best understand pick lists, you should have a basic understanding of work orders and repetitive schedules, understand the basic scenarios for pick list allocation, including direct and non-direct, and understand the difference between non-serial controlled and serial controlled items, which we'll cover, I believe, in our May webinar. Here's a basic flow of creating a bulk pick list with 16.5.6 bulk item print. It follows the basic sequence of create the bulk pick list, print the bulk list, pick the materials, and transfer. The 16.5.3 production order involves a significantly complex set of calculations that should be studied and optimized for production order implementations. The 16.5.6 production order pick list feature is part of the new production order module. The feature enables efficient material picking for consolidated pick lists of materials across multiple production orders. Materials can be transferred to the shop floor for one or more production orders and optimize the picking sequence for both production orders and shop locations. The 16.5.3 bulk pick list calculation, the QAD, is a feature that offers several benefits to create a single and comprehensive pick list for materials across production orders for a production line, considers controlled and shop floor locations to consider the optimal sequence. It uses the phantom use-up logic, and as I mentioned, it can include planned orders that are set to P. Now that we looked at locations, allocations, and pick lists, both non-directed and directed pick lists, let's consider actually releasing a production order to manufacturing. The 16.5.5 production order pick list is a set of items and quantities that should be retrieved and picked from controlled location to specify requirements on the production order. As mentioned, the 16.5.5 is used to print the pick list. Here we can specify filters to create pick lists, include pick number, site, production line, shift, release, lots of options for that. You can specify whether it include production orders, repetitive, both, reprint, shortage tags. Choose to sort the pick list or pages whether to display material. The 16.4.2 production order release and print is normally used to release a production order, signaling readiness for execution, and optionally print-related documents such as the pick list or the shop packet. This is similar to the old 16.6 work order release and print for orders. 16.4.2 allocates components, prints documents, and moves the production order to the first operation, optionally through your control file, and you can release orders without printing documents, such as a paperless system. In paperless systems, normally in a repetitive environment, you can use the 16.4.2 without printing paperwork. Such industries as food and beverage, pharmacy, oil, automotive, electronics, all can be released without printing and by setting the release options to print sheet none. You can use 16.4.5 production order sheet print when you have a required review of a production order. The 16.4.5 provides a comprehensive document summarizing production order details at that point in the process. The 16.4.5 prints all relevant information, serves as a digital or physical document that can accompany the product through the various stages of manufacturing, can be customized, and facilitates communication between the planning department and production teams by providing clear instructions for documentation. The purpose of the 16.5.14 production order update is to identify and track the materials on the production order. This, as I said, is a very, very handy process that updates the production order to current situations. When the system transfers inventory to the shop floor location, the system checks the transfer allocation policy to determine whether to keep or drop the allocation. The system transfers allocations and picked inventory from stocking to the shop floor. You can use 16.5.11 production order pick list issue to issue components that appear on a pick list. This function is typically used to issue inventory quantities that have been picked from the stockroom. The 16.5.12 production order component issue, very similar to the old 16.10, is to facilitate accurate and efficient issuance of materials and components required for production orders. Functions to issue components, supports allocations, lot location, operation-specific issuances, material or automated issuances, and issues are not restricted to what the system has allocated. You can override the selection manually. The production order and inventory balances are updated only after approval of the quantity to issue inventory. The production order component issue reviews data review frame allows a complete review and control of component issues as to what operation, site, location, serial, reference, and quantity. The 16.3.5 production order bill browse is a great browse to keep track of what has occurred in terms of component issues in the usage on production orders. There's lots of browsers in the new 16 menu. So what have we talked about today? Well, we talked about production orders, we covered locations, talked about allocations, transfer allocation, pick list, issue policies, direct, bulk, releasing perk orders. Remember, in 2023, CIO Magazine named QAD as one of the top 10 most powerful ERP systems out there. ERP, learn how to do it. Learn how to use it. Did you see where Thoma Bravo and QAD just acquired Phoenix software? This is now called the QAD Advanced Scheduling option and optimizes production decisions by determining what products have to make on each production line and the possible sequence. Today's manufacturing and mix environment requires global supply chain. The new production order functionality provided by QAD allows users and organizations to execute discrete work orders, repetitive orders, MPS orders for manufacturing through one consistent interface. Additionally, new functionality affords new tools for controlling material from pick through flow and the work center locations, both inside and outside work centers. It's going to take a while to gather and track all the data pieces that you might need for production orders. The better you model data in your ERP system, the better off you are. Because of that, a lot of people use spreadsheets to hold data and bring that into QAD. The tale to tell is don't use spreadsheets to store data. Keep the data in QAD. 32's myriad of data loaders help you download in real time. You can massively update data, validate your data, correct errors, and increase your productivity. As we've seen, production orders basically include everything you need to know about manufacturing. 32Soft can bring logic, accuracy, and consistency to that process. Here's a list of new production order browsers or updates, data loaders, and applications that Christian, Olena, Alex have been working on. There's a new 16.1 workbench. There's a 16.3.1 production order create, modified, and browse. There's a 16.3.4 production order bill. The production planner plus now includes the 16.3.1 functionality. And in development, Olena has the 16.3.9 repetitive cum order maintenance and 16.13.1 production order receipt. There's a lot of information that you need to start to learn with production orders. You're going to want to build your production acumen. There are lots of resources out there, online resources. There are certification books. The user groups for West Coast, Midwest, and Southeast have excellent discussion groups and resource boards. West Coast user group just updated its website with new panel of directors and selections. And for those of you who can attend, the West Coast user group is holding their spring 2025 on April 13th through 15th at the Hilton Gardens in Carlsbad in California. You can get a lot of knowledge through the QAD forums, and there's always the knowledge base, my go-to after F1. But you really need to explore AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and now DeepSeek. Lots of good stuff in AI. The QAD library, everything you wanted to know about QAD. You look hard enough. And there's the recently updated QAD Learning Center, which is a great place to learn about current and new QAD functionality. As I mentioned, here's a list of all the URLs with clickable links for all slides, documents, records that we used for the presentation. Just click the site on the website, 32Soft, and it'll take you to that may help you better understand the use of ERP in your system. It's always good to learn how to use the new social media and artificial intelligence in search of information in this age of Aquarius. Here's a list of hashtags for production order subjects to QAD. We hope you've enjoyed this quick look at some of the production order operations and how these processes can be used to help you deal with the multitude of challenges you have in today's world. The application of production order concepts and tools can help you on your way to tomorrow's manufacturing, i.e. O3. Please contact Denise, Nancy, Alex, myself, if you can think of any questions regarding production orders or quantities. Thank you so much. Denise, back to you.